Usually they come with an acute symmetrical polyarthritis. That means if your metacarpophalangeal joint of right hand is involved, there will be an involvement of metacarpophalangeal joint of left hand also. That means symmetrical polyarthritis. So pain, stiffness in multiple joints, at least 4 groups in the morning. The morning stiffness will be more. The morning stiffness is a characteristic feature of this disorder. If at all you have to remember one thing, please remember morning stiffness in rheumatoid arthritis. Same like morning stiffness in the lower back in ankylosing spondylitis. What is that? All these inflammatory conditions have more pain early in the morning because the protective spasm, the muscle tone is very much less in the mornings. Hence, these raw surfaces are prone to be rubbed against each other more than what could have happened in the evenings because of protected muscle tone, muscle spasm. Early mornings, patients have a lot of stiffness as well as more pain. Am I clear here? And they have night pains also. Night cries is also because of the same pathology, right? When the protective muscle spasm has gone, the surfaces rub against each other and ultimately you end up in what? Night cries, severe pain arising because of the 2 raw surfaces rubbing against each other. So pain and stiffness, and especially morning stiffness, the joints affected more commonly are metacarpophalangeal joints. Just remember this thing, in hands, especially proximal joints, metacarpophalangeal joints and proximal interphalangeal joints are more commonly affected in rheumatoid arthritis. One is that. So commonly affected joints are MP joints of hands and proximal interphalangeal joints. So other joints are also affected, wrist, knee, elbow, hip joint, they are also affected. Sometimes only those joints are affected and these are not affected, giving a very bad picture for you, a confusing picture for you. But keep in mind, all of them also can be affected. The least affected joints are these atlantoaxial joints, but still if they are affected, they are very dangerous. They can still be affected, but they are very much less. Other symptoms I told you, patients can just come with you with pyrexia of unknown origin, just like any upper respiratory tract infection or any infection with a virus causing fever as well as lymphadenopathy and even maculopapular rash. They can come with these atypical symptoms too. So they can come with vasculitis. Sometimes these rheumatoid nodules, they are very much characteristic. If at all rheumatoid nodules are there, once you have taken a nodule for a biopsy and you have a characteristic picture, if they are there, even if any other criteria is not there also, you can load it. You can say that this is rheumatoid arthritis. It is that much characteristic, right? It is usually seen on the dorsal surface of the forearm or even tendocles. That means the subcutaneous surfaces are the areas where you can see these nodules. And it can cause serositis. This is a picture showing iridocyclitis and scleromalacia changes that are occurring in the sclera of the eye, right? Now, once it is happening in the lung, you can have pleurisy, pleuritic pain, and sometimes it can ultimately end up in a Kaplan syndrome or honeycomb, right? You see in interstitial fibrosis and other disorders in medicine you learn, even in rheumatoid arthritis you can have this. In ankylosing spondylitis I told you, upper lobe cavitary lesions also can be present in these type of disorders, confusing it with even what? Tuberculosis, right? Here also the same picture. You can end up in a lung just like interstitial fibrosis, right? In heart, pericarditis also a feature that you can see in rheumatoid arthritis. These are the things which come late, or these are the atypical presentation most often. But thing is, you should remember that it can cause serositis. At least if you can remember that, it can cause vasculitis, it can cause serositis, and other things can be anemia. What is Feltis syndrome? Rheumatoid arthritis with hepatosplenomegaly and neutropenia is Feltis syndrome. What is Still's disease? It is a systemic onset rheumatoid arthritis with fever, systemic features, right? On examination, suppose a patient has come to you with rheumatoid arthritis and complaining of pain and swelling in some group of joints. Once you examine these patients, you can see swollen boggy joints because of synovial hyperplasia as well as joint effusion. Once you see this, right, you should get the rheumatoid arthritis in your brain. These two things are more commonly seen in tuberculosis and rheumatoid arthritis. Keep these two things always in your mind. But tuberculosis usually affects one joint most often. But when it comes to rheumatoid arthritis, it affects multiple joints symmetrically. So you can see these deformities in the joints affected by rheumatoid arthritis. This is called ulnar drift. That is, this is ulnar, this is radius. So all the fingers are trying to go towards the ulnar side at the level of metacarpophalangeal joint. This is a Boutonniere's deformity wherein there is a flexion deformity of proximal interphalangeal joint and extension deformity of distal interphalangeal joint. These are all the deformities that happen because of synovium at these joints being affected by these rheumatoid pathology and ultimately ending up in synovitis, ultimately ending up in damage to the joint, and ultimately ending up in this type of deformity because of various muscle groups acting upon these joints, right? And this is called as swan neck deformity. What is swan neck deformity? Hyperextension of the proximal interphalangeal joint and flexion at the distal interphalangeal joint. This is swan neck deformity. This is Boutonniere's deformity. This is hallux valgus deformity. This is hammer toe deformity. Hallux valgus is great toe facing towards the all other lesser toes, right? This is a triple deformity seen in the knee joint. This is hammer toe deformity, extension at the metacarpophalangeal joint and flexion at the proximal interphalangeal joints in the toes, right? So once you get these type of deformities on clinical examination, what do? You try to confirm it. You know that you are either dealing with rheumatoid or with a tuberculosis, it were to be one joint, but you take some investigations. What are those? First thing that comes to an orthopedician's mind is radiograph. What do you see? Because it is a joint pathology, right? There can be a reduced joint space because of the articular cartilage being completely worn out, erosion of the articular margins, juxta-articular osteopenia, soft tissue shadows because of dense synovial hyperplasia, and if it has already gone to a phase where stage 3, you see these deformities what I have explained. These are all the changes that you can see in the X-rays. Once you take the blood investigations, there will be ESR, elevation of the ESR, there can be anemia, right? What is rheumatoid factor? The rheumatoid factor is nothing but an autoantibody. Usually it can be, the antibody can be IgM, IgG, IgA or IgE. Most often this is IgM. This IgM antibody is an autoantibody to what antigen? It is towards the Fc portion of the IgG native antibody. You have IgG antibodies in your body. What does they do? They protect you. These are protective antibodies in your body. Now, rheumatoid factor is nothing but an IgM antibody produced against this protective IgG antibody. What is happening? This IgG Fc portion, right, the vertical portion of the antibody has been identified as an antigen by your body and is now producing an antibody, that is IgM, towards this Fc portion of the what? IgG. Now this IgG Fc portion and IgM, now both of them are coming together and form a complex. These complexes, they go and settle down in the synovium and activate all the other cells. Come, we'll let us fight. So much of inflammation going on because of this nonsense. Got it? So what is rheumatoid factor? Usually for your purpose, rheumatoid factor is IgM, that is designed to fight against IgG, right?